You are about to enter a great adventure.
This is Strutting from Gorilla.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Strutting from Gorilla. I got myself, we got Mikey Cash in the building today. We got a fantastic episode. We're talking about Stone Cold Steve Austin, the one and only, the Texas Rattlesnake, here today. You know, we like to do a lot of in real life topics, but today we're going back to the basics, kind of our sweet spot. Talking about the Attitude Era superstars and beyond. Before we get going, I do want to mention, make sure you check us out on Twitter and on TikTok at @from_gorilla. And breaking news, we have a Facebook and an Instagram. The Facebook handle is SFG Podcast, and the Instagram is SF Gorilla Pod. That's SF Gorilla Pod. And sorry, I messed that up. These are all new for me. So make sure you check them out. They'll have some great updates on there. For those of you who have never listened before, this is a podcast with 4 longtime wrestling fans talking about everything under the sun from wrestling. And tonight we're talking about Stone Cold. We are down 2 members, the Leader of Men and Big Mango. But the show must go on, right, Mikey Cash?
Absolutely. And we're ready and willing to take the ball and run with it. So let's do it.
Get that brass ring, right? Take that brass ring.
That's right, pal. Grab the ring.
Yep. So today, let's get right into it. We're talking about Stone Cold, right? You know, probably the biggest, if not best, superstar of all time. And you could debate it, you know what I mean? It's definitely debatable. But we're just going to go through his career a little bit here, touch on some of the stuff that was on the A&E documentary recently, which I thought was great. And also the Blu-ray, which is Stone Cold, The Bottom Line. And Mike, I'll let you start us up here.
Yeah, thanks for that, Vito. I will just start off by saying, if you really want just a play-by-play and a timeline of Austin's whole career, I would recommend you watch the A&E documentary and or buy that Blu-ray. We're just going to sort of talk about the things that stood out to us from those things. So just keep in mind that if we're missing things, we don't want people calling us out on Twitter saying that we don't know our shit. We do, but for the sake of time, we're just going to run through the things that we were really interested in. So with that said, just touch on some of his early years. Austin was trained by gentleman Chris Adams in his wrestling school. He actually ended up taking home Rookie of the Year in 1990, which already was making Austin sort of a standout amongst some of the other folks that were coming in at that time. I like to try to include some match standouts. I know usually at the end of the podcast, people are used to me giving my 2 cents and match recommendations. I'm going to sprinkle those in as we're talking about these periods in Austin's career. So what I would say is people can go on the network, try to find Stunning Steve Austin versus Gentleman Chris Adams from May 1990. The network doesn't have a lot of USWA stuff. This match in particular was actually from the Blu-ray. So if you can get your hands on it, it's pretty easy to find. Vito, what did you have to take from some of his early stuff? Did you get to sort of see it much? I mean, from like the documentary and stuff?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I don't know too much about it, to be completely honest with you, but watching it was very interesting. I love the fact, you go back and, I always equate things like what's different about today compared to the superstars of yesteryear, right? And again, you go back to this grind that they had to go through, where they had to suffer. I mean, there was a point where he talked about he had to ask his parents for money, and Stone Cold Steve Austin isn't the type of guy that is going to do that. And
absolutely not.
He grinded through it all, and it took him a long time to get to the top. And unfortunately today, because you don't have those territories and that competition, it's you don't see that grind. So I think it's actually affecting the quality. It's like a give and take. And we could debate this all day with some of the good stuff that's gone on for wrestlers and some of the bad stuff. And what it's like it's like that kind of in all sports, really. But I really think that grind is what made a superstar great. And I'll talk more about it as we go along.
Absolutely.
But the one thing you had talked about was when he was being trained and how Mick Foley was up in the rafters and saw him. And it's easy to say now, it's easy. I always laugh with,
of course.
Like, oh, I remember that guy, like I knew that right away. He was going to be a superstar. But,
like it's such bullshit, right?
Yeah.
They're just blowing smoke. It's so disingenuous.
Yeah, they keep that kayfabe going no matter what. But no, it was pretty cool that he did see him. He did remember that, and I believe that's genuine. And he probably did stand out. I mean, he's a pretty talented guy.
Well, absolutely. He kind of had the look, especially at that time. Think about some of the tag teams that were really popular back then, like the Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express. The hair, man, and think of the time frame, like the 80s hair bands. Like, look at those long, luscious blonde locks of Steve Austin when he first debuted. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I hate the wrestlers with good hair. I really do. It makes me jealous. If you don't know, I don't have hair, and it pisses me off. Like, I wish I could do that. Jericho pissed me off the most because he would always do the little ponytail, which I found out recently was because of Kiss, right? The Gene Simmons look. So I didn't know that, but that's where he got it from. But anyways, that's way off subject. But but no, I agree though. He definitely had that look at the time where it was the long blonde hair, like everyone was trying to do that, be a rocker, So.
Oh man, so Vito, going off of something you said, you're talking about the grind, and part of the grind, and something that we've lamented a little bit here before, is the territories. So being able to go around to all these different places and hone the craft, and there wasn't just this one. We say cookie cutter a lot, but really it's the best way to describe it. This one style that the Performance Center now is the biggest distributor of. So it was really cool to see that. And again, it's just another example of that system did work, and it turned out a lot of really big stars. By the time they got to WWF, they were pretty polished.
Yeah, I would agree there. And it's one of those things, it's just Austin's like that perfect example, though, of like, I don't know that if he came up through the Performance Center, he would have been as popular as he is now. I mean, different times.
Absolutely not.
But when we get talking about it, like, I think that grind and that passion and the failures that came along with it, it wasn't like moving up the ranks in a system. You know what I mean? It was, he literally was fighting tooth and nail, trying to get over, trying to get over, trying to figure out how to wrestle. And he learned from, again, he had some great people behind him. And I think a lot of this goes with, not only was he a good superstar and he could talk and he could wrestle, but he was able to be at the right spot at the right time for a lot of places. And it was like this perfect storm.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of being able to sort of learn from so many people, so he gets Rookie of the Year, 91, he gets signed to WCW. And as soon as he gets in there, basically his first singles run is part of Paul Heyman's Dangerous Alliance. So it's Arn Anderson, Bobby Eaton, Larry Zbyszko, Medusa, Rick Rude, Michael Hayes. That's a hell of a learning tree to be under. And Austin was really fortunate to be working with them. He ends up winning like the TV title. So things were going pretty well for him at that time. And while he was sort of associated with them, then he kind of breaks off. And the booker at the time, Dusty, tells him, hey, baby, we're going to give you the US title run. We're going to be Holly Raitha, the manager, baby. It's going to be wonderful. It's going to be money. And then, Austin already shares his story. He shows up at TV. Brian Pillman walks up to him. He's like, hey, kid, we got to come up with a finish. We're a tag team now. Austin just freaks out. And so, things just got changed on the fly. And it ended up being sort of a blessing in disguise, which happens a lot in wrestling. And he ends up teaming up with Brian Pillman, and they form the Hollywood Blondes. And they actually have a pretty successful tag team run.
Yeah, no, I would agree there. And I from what I understand in the documentary, talks about how he didn't even like Brian Pillman from the beginning. And then all of a sudden they became good friends. And I could see that. They have two different personalities. Like Austin's you can see in the documentary, he's a very reserved guy, right? Like he doesn't put his personal business out there. He goes about it in a professional way, and he's just trying to get over, and he'll do whatever it takes. But he seems like a really professional guy. And Pillman is the loose cannon, right? And I think his personality was like that in general anyways.
Oh, absolutely. He totally lived up to that moniker. Like he was living kayfabe backstage all the time, never quit. So I'm sure that kind of threw Austin off and probably pissed him off more than on more than one occasion.
Oh, absolutely. And there's a funny story about Austin and WCW, and I didn't hear about it on either of these documentaries. It's
Mhm.
actually in the Vader book. I don't know if you've gotten to this chapter yet, but when Arn Anderson and Arn Anderson and Sid Vicious had that altercation, I don't know if you remember that, where Arn
No,
stabbed.
I didn't get to that part yet.
Oh, Arn stabbed Vader, and it was the whole reason. Oh, it was crazy. Like
What?
WCW at this time was a disaster, and that's why Austin left, and a lot of these guys left. There were people at the top that would not allow people to loot. Basically, Dusty Rhodes left as a booker, and they had gosh, I can't remember who came in as the owner, but they let the top guys run the place basically. And it's funny, it continued on with Hogan and everything to this day to WCW's demise. But there was a point where Arn Anderson and Sid Vicious got in a fight, and Sid was stabbed by Arn Anderson. It got crazy. It got absolutely nuts. But they were talking about Austin was drinking with Vader, and he was there. Like he was there. They were drinking at the bar, and I didn't realize Austin was there at the time of the stabbing. It was like a big known thing. And it's why they ended up like going with Arn Anderson's side, even though Sid Vicious was stabbed, and then Sid left and went to WWF. So a very interesting story. Wait till you get to that chapter. But anyways, it was just funny because they were talking about Austin and how Austin was complaining about his booking and everything. And it was a few days basically before he left WCW.
Oh, really? That's a fascinating story. I can't wait to read that in the book.
Oh, it's crazy. Vader, it's on Vader's side though. Vader says that he stuck his thumb in the wound of Sid Vicious and saved his life. That's what he says in the book, at least. So we'll see.
Vader's a real champion of the people.
Yeah.
This is the biggest Good Samaritan I know.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. That's funny. Wow.
So so he goes into the Hollywood Blondes, right? And then he has a little bit of a singles match, right? He singles run. He gets some good momentum going there.
So during this time with the Hollywood Blondes, he ends up winning tag team championships with Brian Pillman. One of the matches I have to sort of sprinkle in here is Hollywood Blondes against Shane Douglas and Ricky Steamboat for the tag team titles, and it was on a WCW Worldwide, and I believe in '93. I don't know what's happening with like Peacock and the network, so it might be on there by now, but when I tried to go search for it, I couldn't find it, and I couldn't really find it anywhere on YouTube.
The right to censor in reality won. It was a funny meme, but it's true. The right to censor with Godfather and everyone, they've won. It's real life. They've won, and they have taken over Peacock.
Well, listen, slow your roll for a second because I don't think they're censoring anything. Remember what they said. They're transitioning the whole library over from the proper app of WWE Network to Peacock. So I think it might just be one of the things that hasn't made it on there yet. I could swear I saw Worldwides on the network before when it was its own solo app. So
you might be right, but I like my theory better.
Never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
That's right. So anyways, you were saying about the match. Sorry.
All right. So anyway, after they get unceremoniously broken up, which Austin still never knows why, we'll never know. He ends up having kind of one last singles run before he ends up leaving. And that's where he has a series of matches with Ricky Steamboat. So another match to check out, Bash at the Beach 94, him and Steamboat for the US title. Really awesome great match. Stuff. I mean, talk again, another part of that learning tree that Austin was under while he was sort of grooming. And this is coming up on the heels of him going to ECW and later WWF. These guys really taught him how to work. And you could see some of the influences from him working with Steamboat in some later matches, I think especially with Angle. But really great stuff. And he ends up getting injured, and then he gets let go, FedEx style. And then
the old FedEx
comes in. And so, Vito, take it away for his extreme chapter in his career.
Yeah, so he gets FedEx the departure letter from good old Eric Bischoff, right? And before we actually go on to the next stage, though, talk about the Paul Heyman situation with him, because he meets Paul Heyman in WCW.
Yeah, he meets Heyman in WCW. Heyman volunteers to have him join that stable because he thinks it's going to be a good rub for the young kid. And it turns out it was. He ended up winning the singles title. And they always sort of kept in touch when Paul left WCW. And as he started up ECW, he was there for, I think he started that in 93, 94. 95 rolls around. Austin's sitting on his couch drinking booze. He's got a busted up arm. And Paul Heyman said, he called him up and he said, "Hey, man, do you want to come and work for me?" Austin's like, I can't do any work right now. I got a busted up arm. And then, Paul's in his little shrill. He's like, "Well, can you talk?" And so
yeah,
terrible Paul Heyman impression, by the way.
No, that's a great Paul Heyman impression. I loved it. Did you? He had a segment on with Roman Reigns where he did the 10 bells salute to Daniel Bryan. He's like, "Ding!" That was great. I love Paul Heyman. I love and hate Paul Heyman, but Paul Heyman is a great wrestling mind. And so, what does he do? Instead of, listening to what everyone else wants to do, he says, "Austin, just come in. You can talk, right?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, come in. You're angry. You're pissed off. Be you. Be Stone Cold." So he comes in and he sits down and gives this unbelievable pissed off speech about WCW and Eric Bischoff. And it was the start and the birth of what we know as Stone Cold Steve Austin. He became himself. He said in the documentary, he said that people were like clapping when he was done and it was that good. And you could see it. It's like the transformation's there. But again, it's that perfect storm, right? Learns how to wrestle, has the grind. But because of that grind, he's angry, right? Mm-hmm. And he always says that, what is Stone Cold life in real life? And the Stone Cold in real life is the same person that he portrays on TV, just dialed up. And you could see that. But a lot of that passion came from all the experiences he had. So he gets on this good role in ECW and takes off, right? He does a skit about Hulk Hogan, which was fantastic, right? Like great Hulk Hogan. Yeah.
People should check it out. It's all over YouTube. Just type in Stone Cold ECW promos.
Yeah, it really, really was great. Now, I'll let you talk a little bit more about this, but we, the whole Austin Sandman style type thing, right? Like who stole whose gimmick? That's the question. I don't know. I don't know if Sandman has enough brain cells to be able to do what Austin did, but Austin maybe took his gimmick and just amplified it a little.
I agree with you on that. I think this is very much almost like a wrestling chicken and egg situation. Like, because Sandman had his own thing going on. And while Austin was there, he actually gets thrown into a program with Sandman at the time, who was the ECW champion. Yeah. So there's a match to check out. Steve Austin versus Sandman versus Mikey Whipwreck for the ECW title. December to Dismember 1995. It's not on the network right now, but I think it's working its way there, contrary to Vito's conspiracy theories.
Yeah. The funny thing about Mikey Whipwreck, though, I know we're talking about Austin, but Mikey Whipwreck in ECW was awesome. He went to WCW and it just ruined his career. Like, I don't understand that. Like, some places are just a perfect fit for somebody. Mikey Whipwreck was one of those guys.
Yeah, he definitely was. There was a couple of guys from ECW where as soon as they left there, like they just needed to they worked in ECW and there only.
Yeah.
But Austin was actually not one of those guys. He could work anywhere, and he took things from each place he went. And when he got to ECW, I think he found, like you were saying, he found his core. He started to find the foundation of what would later become the Stone Cold character. And part of that may or may not have been him borrowing some pieces of the Sandman gimmick. And it doesn't seem like... I've never seen anything from Sandman as the years have gone on in interviews or making any accusations. So I doubt he really gives a fuck. I don't think we should either. It's just something to notice when you're watching his ECW stuff. But speaking of forming a great foundation, nothing defines Austin's career more than trials and tribulations, and none did he encounter more than when he first walks into the WWF as not stunning Steve Austin with all this momentum from his time in WCW and ECW. He is the ringmaster.
Yeah, but the thing with the ringmaster is this, right? Like WWF wasn't at ECW's level yet, but Heyman and McMahon kind of had this like close relationship. Mm-hmm. And I think he saw Austin and was like, this guy could fit here, and took
Sure.
him in. But then, just like in today's world, he gets the WWF treatment and he has to have some sort of cushy character, right? And it took away from what Austin really was. So he has this coming to coming to life of the Stone Cold, and then it kind of like subsides a little bit with the ringmaster as the suck ass gimmick.
Yeah.
But it got his foot in the door, right? It got his
True.
foot in the door.
I mean, hey, they basically they threw a wet blanket over any momentum he had, and then it took him a while to sort of dry that off, like almost a year for him to finally start drying that shit off. You know, you'll see in any of the documentaries that you'll watch that he starts to really push for getting more independence with the character, and so he finally gets some okay to end up moving away from the ringmaster character and sort of developing what would become the Stone Cold persona, and it comes about in a really strange way. So he's already talking about like what kind of guy he wants to be and sort of the demeanor that he wants to carry, and he gets influenced by this serial killer Richard Kuklinski. He was like the Iceman, and so he's very cold, calculated, very flat, just like down to business. And Austin saw that and he felt inspired, so he felt like he could take pieces of that. And then one day he's trying to figure out, while he's rummaging through this terrible list of different in-ring names that WWF sent him, because he talked about wanting to be cold as ice, and they were sending him names like Fang McFrost, Otto Van Icicle, or some shit like that. Like, it was just awful stuff. And his wife at the time was from London, so she made him tea, and she puts the tea down next to him, and she said, "Drink it before it gets stone cold." And that right there, Stone Cold Steve Austin. And
again, it's like right spot, right time again.
Right?
Stone Cold. But it's funny because you can see he's a very calculated guy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like these things just came to him like it was meant to be, and it worked, man. And I remember seeing him against Savio Vega, right? I'll never forget.
I love Savio Vega.
Me too, by the way. I also do. But I remember the Raw he came on and I was like, oh, this guy. Like, I'm like, this guy's a snaky, squirrely dude. And like, without even knowing that he was trying to portray that, that's what you got from him. You got, and I compare, who's the John Moxley to Austin all the time, because it's like that same snaky mentality, like you against the world. And I remember the match against Savio Vega, and I'm like, I hate this guy. Like, I don't like him. Like, I don't like him.
Yeah.
It's just like this snaky dude. And it was like, again, I was still in that character phase of I like the good guy. I like
he was just a
I like Bret Hart.
Of course,
like right. And so, anyways, he comes in and he starts, finding himself a little bit, and he starts getting on the cards, and he's wrestling more often. And so the 1996 King of the Ring comes around, and they're supposed to have Triple H win it, but because the whole Click send off, they decided against it, right? And they said, Austin, this is your chance. So again, right place, right time, right?
It's so wild.
It really is.
So
but it's a great story. I mean, again, this guy's grinding. He's taking the opportunities. He's taking that brass ring as you want, and he's running with it. I mean, so much so that during the King of the Ring, he's got a match against, I can't remember.
Mark Marrow.
It was Mark Marrow. And
Mark
that's
Marrow.
where, something happened and he had to go to the hospital.
Yeah, he kicked. So Marrow kicks him like in the mouth, and like his tooth ends up like busting through his bottom lip. So he had to go get it stitched up. And so he comes back. And by the time he gets back, he's already like basically walking to go have his second match.
Yep.
And Jake the Snake had just cut a pretty religious promo at the time. And then, I guess he asked Michael Hayes, like, what did he say? He's like, oh, he said something about like John 3:16 and all this stuff. He's like, oh, okay. So he goes out, has the match with Jake, stuns him, 1, 2, 3, goes up to the podium or to the throne. Michael Hayes interviews him, and it's born right then and there. Austin 3:16 says, I just whooped your ass. And it's like one of those moments where just when you watch it back, you're like, oh, you could feel it in the crowd. They were like, oh, this guy's fucking awesome. Like, it went from kind of hating him to like, that was the first moment where he was a heel, but he got that pop.
Yeah. And then before the match even started, he had that whole line about you thump your Bible, you say your prayers, and we talk about this like right place, right time. Well, he must have had respect because a guy like Jake the Snake was well respected. He had his issues,
Absolutely.
and people knew that, but he still, even to this day, is one of the best talkers on the mic of all time. Like it's natural for this guy, and he was willing to put Austin over. And if it wasn't for his change in character, right, in the way that he was going about it and putting his personal issues in there, you wouldn't have seen that snakiness from Stone Cold that really pushed his character. It was like,
Yeah.
it was perfect.
Like, how could you have planned that Jake was religious at the time and use that? And because of that, that's the only reason Austin 316 came about. That wasn't something he was just going to think off the top of his head. It was bouncing off of something the other character had said. It's
100%.
beautiful.
Yeah, and that's really where the lightning bolt started, right? He talks about it all the time. You ride that lightning bolt until you can't ride it anymore, because once it stops, it's hard to get back. And Austin, again, the grind. I'll say this again because this is a really big, important part about him that I never really realized until watching this documentary. But his grind and his desire to be on top was unlike anyone else you'd seen in the business. Yeah, you got your Hulk Hogan, and yeah, he's always going to be that Babe Ruth, but that was different. He was this 6'5", 6'4" guy, like perfect body. Like the way he went about it was just completely different than Stone Cold. And Stone Cold's grind to get there was just so crazy. And this was the moment that it started. And I think the moment that you'll see, just he rode that thing as far and as fast as he could, and he takes that, and even during that King of the Ring moment, which I know the Leader of Men had some great things to say about this, and we're going to get his take on this because he had some really, really great stuff to say on this particular moment in general. But like, even right then and there at that moment when he's talking to Michael Hayes, he comes up with that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so. He didn't rehearse it. He just said it. It's like
just
that
off the cuff.
Click, boom, done, and it was perfect. And you go back, I always watch that, and it's great. So let's keep the story moving forward.
Let's keep it going.
He wins there, and then what?
He wins the King of the Ring. And speaking of the grind, one thing I always appreciated about Austin was he was always there to fight for his character. That's part of the grind for him, I think. And to his detriment, sometimes he would be fighting creative. One thing I always appreciated, and during this time in 96, he talks about this in interviews where he was often put on commentary and kind of essentially cutting promos during matches. And Vince was sort of kind of muting him and sort of cutting him out. And Austin said, you're cutting my legs out from under me. I don't have a lot of marketing when it comes to, I'm a bald guy wearing black trunks and I got a knee brace. Like, I need to be interesting. Don't take my personality away. And him being able to advocate and talk to Vince and get Vince to sort of give him that shot and just say, all right, like, give me a little room here. And he took off. So I just one instance where Austin was able to present a different solution and not end up just, how throughout his career, he often fought stuff and didn't have a solution present. It was like, well, you're creative, just come up with something different.
But, yeah, I think it's a different mindset, though, later on in his career. It's that grind got to him. The grind is good, but the grind is bad. And so, I'll say, like, I may be overstepping a little bit here, but the other part of what jumped off, we talk about right place, right time. I've said that a bunch tonight, but it's true. And that time in our society was different. You had a more rebellious stage. And I think people were seeing that, and you could see it in society, even the music, like your Rage Against the Machine, you got all these different things going on that are popular, and it's outside the norm. And so he represented that really well. He represented kind of, effing of the authority figure. And it really started there with Jake, but then he also got the bump from Bret Hart. Bret Hart was like the Hogan at the time, and he was this character that everyone loved. I was a Bret Hart guy, so I hated Austin at the time. And to the fact that he was willing to put on a program and Bret saw something in him too, that was also brought him to a whole nother level.
Absolutely. The fact that Bret Hart was coming back after his loss at WrestleMania 12. I mean, you had to think Bret wasn't back on TV from March till October, late October, November. So he comes back, and the first person he chooses to work with is Austin. He saw him coming from a mile away. He always says that. He was always watching Steve's career.
Again, easy to say now.
Brett might be the only person I could actually believe that on, but anyway, I digress. Brett sort of says, "Hey, I want to work with Austin," and those series of matches that follow and the promos that follow that really help ignite the fire under what becomes a white hot run for Austin, from that match at Survivor Series in 1996 through the Royal Rumble, where we see him sort of chicken shit win, and Austin gets like a kind of, I don't know, is it a real win? Do you count it?
I don't know. I think they count it. If you look at the stats every year when they do the Royal Rumble, I count it.
Yeah, I mean, he was smooth.
Yeah.
Why wasn't 100%. There a referee on that side of the ring?
Exactly.
I don't know. You know?
Yeah.
So then it gets to, so the Royal Rumble happens, and because of a series of cheating, or really the refs not seeing, Austin comes back in the ring. He eliminates Brett, and their story continues to WrestleMania 13, where they have probably one of the best matches in Mania history, in that I Quit match with Ken Shamrock as the guest referee.
Yeah. No, I agree. And that is possibly my favorite match of all time. I love that match. I just think it's great. The way that, if you listen to Bret Hart talk about that match, he talks about how the subtle things of him shifting from a baby face to a heel, but he really wasn't full heel. He was kind of like baby face saying that Austin was a baby face. It was weird because it was a shift like that you hadn't seen before. And so he started,
so for the listeners that aren't familiar with what happens in this match, they do something in wrestling that's really difficult to pull off, and it's called a double turn. And basically what that means is the bad guy in the match, Stone Cold, and the good guy in the match, Bret Hart, by the end of the match will have switched places.
Yep.
And it is often tried and very rarely executed well. And this is one of the very few, if not maybe the only, where it's just pulled off to perfection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's true. And a lot of it was because of the subtle things that they did. Brett was always the guy that did things the right way. And even in the locker room, same thing. Mm-hmm. Austin is portrayed as a sneaky snake guy, but the way that Brett and him were wrestling, it was outside of Brett's normal wrestling style. And it made him seem angry at Austin and the crowd for how Austin was acting, but it basically glorified his heel behavior is the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
And so when he lost, they didn't even make it a clean loss. They made him so that he passed out from the blood rush.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And one of the most iconic images in wrestling, like history, is that
how
picture
of
Austin with his face up and the blood's like going into the teeth. I think they made a t-shirt out of it.
Yeah. And you can't even you can't portray that any better, because it basically says, yeah, Brett won, but it was like sour grapes. The fans hated it, but Austin never quit. Mm-hmm. So it made him seem like a good guy, but he really wasn't. So it's like, it's polar opposite. And that to me is the start of the Attitude Era. Like that really, to me, like you have the Bret Hart situation. It's right around the same time with McMahon, but like those two together, it's perfect. And so he continues to ride that lightning bolt, and the crowd is over on Austin like you wouldn't believe. But the thing here is you have other people behind the scenes like Shawn Michaels, who's in the top. And when you're in the top, you get paranoid. You don't want to lose your spot, man. Right. And so it was difficult. It was difficult. But the best thing that happened, and I believe it was between this time and WrestleMania 14, is what he had the feud with The Rock, right?
So it wasn't The Rock yet. So after this time, so he has the match at WrestleMania in 1997 against Bret Hart. Afterwards, he ends up getting a title match against The Undertaker. And it's a pretty good match. And it's, in a weird factoid, it's one of the only times you'll see Austin ever take the tombstone. Because after what happens at SummerSlam, Austin's very leery of taking pile drivers through the rest of his career.
Yeah.
So just fun fact.
Makes sense.
Absolutely. Luckily, before that match, before that ill-fated SummerSlam, He has King of the Ring 97. At this point, he's tag team champions with Shawn Michaels, and they end up just having a match against one another. I thought at first it was actually part of the tournament, but it's not. So they end up feuding, and they have this really great match that ends in, I think, like a double DQ, because they both just end up like beating the hell out of the referees. But that match right there was definitely something that Vince McMahon was watching backstage. He saw the chemistry those guys had together and thought, that's going to be my WrestleMania main event. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. But if for folks who wanted to see what we all wanted to see at WrestleMania 14, check out that King of the Ring match from 1997. It's really good.
Yeah, I remember that one. You're right. It was good. So then he moves on, and then SummerSlam comes, right? And that's when the whole situation. So he's in a feud with Owen Hart for the Intercontinental Championship. Owen gives him a pile driver. His head is below his legs, and Austin suffers basically a fractured neck. And he's at this high, and he's about to hit the peak, and then he hits this low, and he still finishes the match. Like, it was unbelievable. The guy's basically paralyzed for moments and finishes the match and wins, and tries to walk off and with basically a fractured neck.
It's insane. And you can see it in the documentary. I never knew this, but he's kind of breaking down crying, because how could you not after something like that happening? Yeah. Your life flashing before your eyes. The first thing he's thinking of when he can't feel anything is Christopher Reeve. And luckily the feelings came back to his extremities. But what a scary, scary thing to have gone through. I can't imagine that, the fear that would run through you. And he ends up having to get surgery, but still, no, he didn't actually get surgery, did he? I think he was sort of just trying to rehab it. Yeah. And even then, like, he's coming out and like delivering stunners to people, and
but that's the point, though. He knew how hard he worked to get to that, and the grind. If he didn't do that, he wouldn't be where he is, because that's where the whole Austin McMahon thing started, right? Yep. So you think it's this terrible thing, Austin's done, but he's not, and he continues to ride that lightning bolt when maybe he probably shouldn't have. And those effects affect him now. And we'll talk about that at the end. But like, that lightning bolt started, and he continued to come out, and the crowd liked him even more because he got more time on the mic. Because again, what did he do in ECW? He talked. And that's what he did here. And so he continued to talk. And that's when the Austin McMahon feud started.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I think it was a show in like December of 97. I think it might have been Madison Square Garden, where it's like the stunner heard around the world, where it finally came off. And that was sort of the real catalyst for Vince McMahon, the on TV character. This is coming off the screw job, so people already hate Vince. And he just sort of rolled with that, and also kind of lifting up Austin as well.
Perfect place, perfect time again.
Yep. And his momentum just continues. He ends up winning the 1998 Royal Rumble. Also at the 98 Rumble, Shawn Michaels is in a match with The Undertaker, ends up getting his back hurt. So that's something that carries over into a couple months later in Boston. Vito, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, I was there. I have an article up on struttingfromgorilla.com. You can check it out. It was my WrestleMania moment, and it was awesome. And you know, it wasn't perfect, right? Again, anytime you're on top, and you're on top with this much pressure, you're going against another company, and you're fighting for this top spot that you've been waiting your whole life for, and you've been grinding with no money, and you finally get there. It's the same thing with Michaels. Michaels didn't want to give up the belt, but he had to. He was going through issues, and he couldn't handle that pressure. Think about it that way. He couldn't handle the pressure of being on top. And now it's Austin's turn. The match wasn't the best match in the whole world, but it lived up to the hype. It was fine. It was great. Austin wins the belt. And again, that lightning bolt is just continuing to ride. It's continuing to ride, and it's going higher and higher. And basically at this point, you know, they give him the belt, and this is the start of WWF basically crushing WCW in the ratings. It took some time, but they got there. And the reason that WWF was able to go corporate, and you look back at this time, and he had the feuds with The Rock. He had the feuds with Mr. McMahon. And again, right places, right times. And he does it so well. But you don't realize what he's sacrificing behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No.
This guy is 24/7 wrestling. These guys were doing shows almost 7 days a week. There was no days off. He couldn't take a day off. He was sacrificing time with his family. His personal life was a mess. But Paul Heyman says it perfectly in the documentary. And I don't remember the line word for word, but it was like the price of fame is expensive or it's heavy. And it's true. And I look at this and I always give the guys a hard time with today's wrestlers. And maybe I just didn't realize exactly what comes with how much he had to work. I mean, he was all over like the late night talk shows, sports, everything, but that comes with a big price. And I just don't know that anyone else would be able to do that like Austin did. And I don't know that you'll see that again. I really don't. And we were lucky enough to see The Rock was the same way.
Mm-hmm.
It's just they were there at the same time, and it was great to see. And the KO, when I really noticed this was when Kevin Owens came on the documentary, and he goes, "I hate when people ask me all the time, like, when are you going to be like Stone Cold? When are you going to be like Stone Cold?" He's like, "I'm not Stone Cold. I'm not doing that. Like, think about it, And he goes, there will never be, you can't compare people to guys like this. And I never really looked at it that way.
Yeah. It almost felt like almost a resignation. I think he said something along the lines of like, well, it's not like Austin. He's like, but I'm trying, like everybody's trying to sort of reach that level. And it's really hard to do. And I think we were really spoiled at the time for watching it when we were. Yeah. So seeing Austin sort of at his heights and just the things that guy was able to do with the crowd, one thing that Austin didn't get a lot of credit for that he was really good at, and something that's on that Blu-ray at least, his shenanigans after shows. He was really big about like just sending the fans home like with a great show, like really happy. There's times when him and The Rock would they would have like a line of beers, and they'd all have to like drink the beers like at backstage, like in front of everyone after the show goes off the air. Austin was great at that and sort of entertaining it. He loved that. He thrived off of it. But his in-ring though, we still got a few more things. But when he had that neck issue, he had to change his whole style too. Yeah, which people don't realize. He couldn't. Yeah, he had to become a brawler, and that's really difficult to do. And he did a great job with it. Yeah, no, I think he transitioned really well. And speaking of some of the feuds he had along the way, obviously the biggest one he had was The Rock. I think, we talk about The Rock a lot. How much I love him. But one thing that I thought was really well represented in the A&E documentary was sort of talking about the mentorship that Austin had for Rock sort of backstage, which I never really knew about. I always got the impression that they were rivals backstage, but I guess not. And Austin sort of seeing that Rock was coming up in the ranks, and he was good at promos, and he was good in the ring, and he wanted to work with him. And those guys just were pure magic together. And I think Paul Heyman said it where, Austin found his equal. And I think that's why all those matches were so electric. Cause like finally, like to quote The Rock, finally, like he found like the 1 and 1A. All the wrestlers talk about that were there at the time, like having two number ones there at the same time. Well, like and for like such a short period, it was like maybe a year and a half when they're both there. Yeah. In their prime. It was really cool. No, and you're 100% right. I agree. It was a once in a lifetime thing, and the equal is right, and they do a great job in the documentary talking about The Rock, and The Rock is on there too. Which that guy's not going to come back for nobody, so he clearly has a lot of respect for Austin, and it was great. It was awesome. I loved every second of it. But the other part of it too is, we don't talk about this, but because of all the pressure that was on him to stay on the top spot, he had to keep reinventing himself, right? And you get to a point where WrestleMania, they basically say WrestleMania 17 was like the peak of the Attitude Era and the peak of wrestling. And after that, it starts to go downhill. And I think with that and Austin, you start to see him, the personal stuff is starting to affect him.
and they're starting to. I'm not gonna say they're not moving on, but they're starting to push some other guys, right?
Yeah.
And so they start to push Brock Lesnar. Obviously, guy's a freak. And the way they did it, Austin had a problem with, but you couple that with his personal problems and he walks out, right? Because they were going to have him go over.
It was like in 2002. It was like,
they were going to have Monday Night Raw
for King of the Ring.
And Austin says it to this day. He's like, I don't understand it. He goes, I have no problem with putting Brock Lesnar over, but on a Raw, he goes, we could make money. He goes, that's what it's about, making the money. If I'm going to lose and I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it and make money. And that's was his problem. And he even says, he goes, I didn't handle it the right way. And so he goes on a hiatus and was in bad terms with McMahon and this whole thing. And it was a pretty rough patch for him. So
yeah, he was gone for a while. And then he gets the call. He has a olive branch by JR, ends up arranging a meeting with him and Vince. And then he comes back in 2003, comes back in like February. And he's only active as a wrestler for about a month or so longer than that. It turns out, everything took a toll. The grind that we keep bringing up today, Austin just takes a toll. It took a toll on Austin. And, his neck was messed up. His knees were messed up. His back. He ends up almost, he had essentially like a panic attack is the way I understand. He's dehydrated. Yeah. He was drinking tons of caffeine. And he was just, I think him knowing that his career was coming to an end also kind of had him on edge. And so he goes to the hospital. They technically didn't clear him and he leaves anyway.
Yeah. He goes, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die in the ring. But that's the mentality though. It's like this guy knows how much he sacrificed for this business. And he
was going to Randy the Ram himself.
I know he was. He was 100% going to do that. Yeah. No, you're 100% right. And it was crazy. And the match, I didn't know at the time that it was his last match. Nobody did. And they could have made a much bigger deal about it. He didn't want to. And
here's what I'm going to ask you. Do you think that they would even let him do that now? If it was 2021 and it was Austin, and let's say that run happened exactly the same way, but now they would not have let him do that so subtly and so without pomp or circumstance. You had one thing that was strange. Right at the end of the match when him and Rock are just sitting in the middle of the ring talking. I remember watching that and me and my friends are thinking, well, what's going on? Why are they sitting there talking to each other? And then later on you found out they're just like basically having a bromance in the middle of the ring.
100%. Yeah, no, you're 100% right. Yeah. But I always wondered what Rock said to him because I knew he said something.
Yeah.
Like when you look back, he basically just said, I love you, man. That's it. And Austin said, I love you too. And then he was like, he's never said that before.
I know, Rock was like shocked.
It was a cool ending. And what's great about it is he knew your lightning bolt ride is not long. And he got it for a good amount of time. And he, rather than draw on like a lot of other people did, the level of intensity to stay at where he wanted to be, couldn't be there. So he moved on, and I give him credit for not wrestling again. I give him credit for doing it the way that he did. He's going to be healthy. I mean, as healthy as he can be. And it was a great way to end his career. And I like that he did it with The Rock. And unfortunately, The Rock didn't have much time after that because he ended up moving on as well.
No,
but really, like the end of the Attitude Era was before that though. Like even on WrestleMania 17, that's when he did the heel turn, right?
Right.
And we didn't talk about this, and I want to mention it, though, because it was a big thing. Again, you take out your competition in WCW, and then what's going to happen? What was there is not going to stay there. And his act, you can only do it for so long, and he needed to do something different. He needed to go against different opponents, and they weren't giving him those guys to go up against. And so he wanted to turn heel, and they all just kind of said, okay. And he did. And quite honestly, I think that's what killed it. Like that, I just wasn't a big fan of it. I mean, it worked toward a little bit because it was funny, but it just wasn't the Austin you knew and loved.
No, and I agree with you in that heel turn did not really work. And there were a couple things that I think happened here. The biggest one was The Rock didn't stick around. And you'll find that they had the WrestleMania 17 match. They have that return match the next night on Raw. And that match on Raw Austin's getting booed out of the building. Rock's getting cheered like crazy. And then Triple H comes out. And then Vince is out. And they're getting shit on. They're throwing stuff. If you watch the end of that match, they're throwing stuff after they beat the hell out of The Rock.
Yeah.
And then The Rock is gone. So he just that is why when Paul Heyman said he was his equal, that's what you needed. You needed a face that was just as strong. And the people were not going to shit on The Rock when Austin just, teamed up with Vince. Yeah. So I think that, and I'll kind of die on this hill, that heel turn didn't work because The Rock wasn't around for that beginning of it to sort of get him established as that bad guy. They did as good as they could with Triple H. I think Triple H is a great heat seeker. People kind of love to hate him. So it felt natural to team them up. But then Triple H consented. So then he loses another piece of the heat seeking puzzle. So now he's sort of left on his own again. And what is he doing? He's like changing up his knee brace colors, like, which is fine and adds a little pizzazz, I suppose, and tries to change up what everybody knew was Stone Cold. But, he had great matches with Angle during this heel turn. He had great matches with Benoit, with Jericho. But no matter what, he needed somebody big. And all due respect to The Undertaker, and he had a couple matches with him, like that wasn't going to do it. Yeah. That wasn't going to be the thing that established him. So I'm not trying to shit on Rock for leaving for Hollywood, but it's just terrible timing for how this happened.
No, I would agree there. And I also think he was going through a tough time with his personal life. Again, when you shut everything out and you focus on one thing, and then all of a sudden everything's coming at you and you have all this pressure. And it was even said that he was very much a loner. He didn't travel with anybody. It's a lot, but I felt like he felt like he had to do it because he had worked so hard, I feel like. And I think all of that combined, and then you don't have the competition anymore, man. Like, you're not going up against a separate company. So what are you fighting for at that point? And it's like, why am I sacrificing all of this for what? What's the end goal? We just won, and it's like, it was like a perfect storm. And I think his time was up, and it was a great ride. Mm-hmm. And again, it'll go down. I'll tell you, when I was at WrestleMania 14, I'll never forget the pop that I heard when he came out. It was unlike anything you've ever heard. Like,
I can't imagine.
It was unreal. And I'll never forget that moment. Like, it was, it was nuts. And that's the type of pop he would get all the time. And he was just, I don't think it will ever be matched. And I don't think we can. This is coming from me now. You're hearing me say this. I think it's unfair to compare a lot of today's superstars to that. I think it's just that I enjoyed it so much. It's tough to enjoy the stuff you're watching now because it's not as enjoyable. So that's where I'll leave it with Stone Cold.
That.
So he has this retirement match. He's beat up. He goes home. He comes back as like an authority figure, like most people do, to have him on TV. And it wasn't bad. Like, it was what it was. It was great to have him on TV, but it was what it was. It was what it was. And he goes on and does other things. He starts doing movies, and he does the podcasting, and he's trying to figure out what's his next step. And I'll tell you, the hosting of the reality shows and the podcasting is great. He does a great job with that. He's podcast. It's really good. I think that's kind of his niche. I don't know that movies are. I don't think he's as good as The Rock there, but the podcasting and like hosting reality shows, I think it's great. He's got this niche to it. And it was a great documentary. It was a great career from him, and he's going to be that bar that I just feel like it's going to be very hard to reach. And the next person that does, I'll be very impressed.
I know we didn't plan any of this, but what are some of your top moments from his career? Personal highlights.
Yeah. So I loved all the shenanigans he did. I loved when so there's a couple in a different ways, right? Yeah. When he pours the cement in McMahon's car, that's a great one. Great. My all-time favorite though is when McMahon is in the hospital, and he comes in and Mick Foley's there with Mr. Sacco, and he hits him and hits him with the thing on the top. Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah. And then the beer spraying and Mobile, and then the Zamboni, all that stuff was great.
That was the loudest bedpan shot of all time. You'll never see that again. It's like the perfect hit. Yeah. Just like the bing right off the McMahon dome. So
but
good.
Then he had comical moments too. Yeah, with him and Angle. So good.
So
good.
Funny.
Yeah.
When he's
What were
singing-
yours? Is that one of
when
yours?
he's like "Kumbaya," my
Yeah.
boy," and he's just singing to him. One, obviously, I love the concrete machine too. Like that's I don't know why, but that's just like just destroying that Corvette is so tragic, but it's so funny at the same
Oh,
time.
so good.
I really liked when him and Rock sang Margaritaville.
Yes.
Do you remember that? It's like
Yeah.
it was like right before Survivor Series, and the network cut this out probably because they sing Margaritaville. But oh my god, look it up on YouTube because it's hysterical. And they're actually in Boston when they do this segment, and it's funny because both of them were such great rivals, and just to see them sort of like let their hair down a little bit and just have some fun was just awesome. And obviously the what chant at that time, it was really good. You know, there's he pulled some great promos on Scott Hall when he first came around.
Yeah,
that were just perfect what template of a promo.
No, he did. Listen, you know, he had some. I mean, you could name
He had so much.
a ton.
It's like because he could be funny, he could be super serious, and we love those moments where he's just coming out like that whole invasion angle. The only highlight that I ever had was that night when like the old Stone Cold came back and the WWF's getting beat down, and then the glass breaks. And
that was awesome.
And he beats the shit out of everybody.
He just comes in.
That was like one of the last true Stone Cold moments. It was so great.
Yeah, it was him against the world. It was it was awesome. No,
that's when his character was at its best.
Yeah, no, it really was. And again, that's the John Moxley comparison I see. Again, it's not to that level, but it's like a shade. You see it. Yeah, he was good, man. He was good. Listen, this episode was well overdue. We could probably do another 10 on him if we really, really wanted to. Unfortunately, his career wasn't that long, but it was concentrated, right? It was a great.
Yeah,
it's like, unlike the Undertaker, which is not. It's not concentrated.
It's a slow burn.
Yeah, completely different. But no, we'll leave it there. Okay. And make sure if you guys disagree with us or you think we forgot something super important about Stone Cold, tweet at us, Instagram at us, Facebook at us, TikTok at us, throw some smoke signals, whatever you want to do. Right. You know, we love to hear about it. And we'll even give you a shout out on the next podcast here. Next episode, not 100% sure what we're doing yet. Do you know what it is? Is it
I think it's
the one and only.
It's going to be about another man who claims to be the most popular superstar of all time.
Does he wear red and yellow?
American.
Yeah, I thought so. It's going to be about Hogan. This will be a good one. I don't know if we'll have enough time to talk about it. We really might have to do it. But, you got to give this guy time. So we'll see how it goes. But we appreciate y'all listening. Hopefully, we'll have Bobby, the leader of men, and Mango back. Again, everyone have a great night. And that's the bottom line because Vito and Mikey Cash said so.
We now return your perception of reality to you. Until next time.